The great hall of the alien council was filled with light and laughter. The leaders of the galactic fleet stood tall, their voices sharp and mocking. Before them, in the center of the chamber, stood a small group of human representatives, silent but steady. The aliens had decided to give humans a ship, but not just any ship. They gave them the weakest, most useless vessel in the entire fleet. The alien commander pointed at the dull, broken ship with a smirk. "This is all you deserve," he said, his words cutting like a blade. The other alien leaders laughed, their voices echoing across the chamber. They believed humans were small, weak, and unworthy of power in the galaxy. To them, this gift was an insult, a way to remind humanity of its place. The human delegation stood quietly, their faces calm. One of them, a young engineer named Sarah, clenched her fists behind her back. She could feel the sting of their laughter, but she refused to show anger. Instead, she whispered to her commander, "Let them laugh, we will prove them wrong." The commander gave a small nod, his eyes focused on the strange ship that now belonged to them. The ship was old, its metal plates bent and rusted, its engines were cracked, its weapons gone, and its systems broken. To the aliens, it was nothing more than scrap floating in the void. But to the humans, it was a challenge, an opportunity to show what they were truly capable of. When the human team entered the ship for the first time, they were shocked. The corridors were dark and cold, the walls covered with strange alien markings, the air smelled of dust and burned wires. "This thing cannot even fly," one soldier muttered, shaking his head. But Sarah placed her hand on the wall, feeling a faint vibration beneath the surface. "There is something alive in here," she whispered, her eyes wide. For weeks, the human engineers worked day and night. They cleaned the ship, studied its systems, and mapped every broken part. Slowly, they began to notice strange things. The ship responded differently to human touch. It hummed when they worked on it, as if it was waking up from a long sleep. The more they repaired, the more the ship seemed to repair itself. It was as if it had been waiting for them. Meanwhile, the alien council watched from afar. Reports came in about human activity inside the weak ship. The aliens laughed again. "They are wasting their time," one said. "No human can fix that piece of junk," another replied. They believed the humans would eventually give up, humiliated and broken. But inside the ship, something incredible was happening. Sarah and her team discovered a hidden core deep within the vessel. It was not a normal engine. It pulsed with strange energy that bent light around it. When Sarah placed her hand on the core, she felt her vision blur. For a moment, she saw stars bending, space itself rippling like water. She pulled back quickly, her heart racing. "This is no ordinary ship," she whispered, her voice trembling. The commander listened to her report, his face serious. "If this is true, then the aliens made a mistake," he said. "They think they gave us weakness, but maybe they gave us something greater." The crew grew excited, their doubts fading into determination. They knew they were standing on the edge of something far bigger than themselves. One night, as the ship floated silently in Earth's orbit, Sarah sat alone in the control room. The ship's systems lit up around her, responding to her presence. She closed her eyes and placed her hands on the console. Suddenly, the screens flashed and the entire ship shuddered. In that moment, Sarah felt a strange power flow through her body. The air around her seemed to bend. The stars outside twisted and flickered. The weak ship was no longer silent. It was alive. Her voice was soft but filled with awe. "We are not fixing this ship," she said. "It is fixing us." The commander stepped into the room, watching the lights dance across the panels. He smiled, his voice calm but strong. "Then let the galaxy watch, because they have no idea what humans can do." And in the distance, far beyond the stars, the alien council sat in their great hall once again, still laughing, still mocking. They had no idea that the weak ship they had given away would soon shake the foundations of reality itself. They had no idea that humanity, the species they had tried to humiliate, was about to rise higher than any of them had ever imagined. The insult had been given, the challenge had been accepted, the story of the weakest ship had just begun. The weak alien ship floated in Earth's orbit, its metal frame still scarred and broken. From the outside, it looked like junk, but inside, humanity was uncovering secrets that no alien had ever imagined. The human crew worked day and night, their hands covered in grease, their eyes heavy with exhaustion, but their spirits unshaken. Every time they touched the strange core deep within the ship, reality seemed to bend. It was like the vessel was alive, whispering in the silence of space. Sarah, the young engineer, was the first to notice the pattern. The core pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and strong, but when she focused on it, the rhythm changed. It matched her own heartbeat. She gasped, stepping back. "It knows me," she whispered. Her commander, Captain Harris, stared at the glowing orb inside the chamber. "That is impossible," he said, his voice low. But Sarah shook her head. "No, Captain, it is real. This ship is not a weapon. It is something else, something greater." The next test began under strict silence. The crew activated the ship's damaged thrusters, expecting them to fail. Instead, the ship drifted forward without power, sliding across space like a shadow. The sensors screamed in confusion. The vessel had not moved at all. Yet outside, the stars had shifted. The ship had bent space itself. The crew froze, their eyes wide with fear and awe. They were no longer flying, they were rewriting reality. Back in the council chamber, alien leaders laughed at the reports. "They fixed a light, they moved a meter, nothing more," one said, waving the data away. But in the shadows of the council, a few alien scientists exchanged nervous glances. They knew no ship, not even the strongest in the fleet, had ever shown such strange effects. If the humans had truly unlocked something inside the core, then the insult gift was about to become a nightmare. Meanwhile, the human crew continued their work. Sarah discovered that the ship's controls were not mechanical at all. They were responsive to thought. When she imagined movement, the ship drifted. When she imagined light, the ship's corridors brightened. She trembled as the truth dawned on her. This ship is not piloted, it is bonded. The crew stood in silence, realizing the aliens had given them not weakness, but a key to something beyond their understanding. One night, during a secret test, Sarah closed her eyes and reached out to the core with her mind. The chamber filled with light, the ship trembled, and suddenly she was no longer inside the vessel. She stood on the edge of space, watching stars bend and galaxies twist like rivers of fire. She felt time slow down, voices whispering in her ears in a language she did not know. Her body shook violently as she was pulled back, collapsing into the captain's arms. "What did you see?" he demanded, his voice sharp with fear. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "I saw reality break." From that day, the crew treated the ship with reverence. They no longer called it junk. They called it the core vessel. It became their secret, hidden from the galaxy, as they tried to master its impossible power. But secrets never last long. A spy within the human ranks transmitted the truth to the alien council. When the leaders read the report, their laughter faded. "No," one said firmly, "this cannot be allowed." They decided to act. They would send warships to Earth, seize the vessel, and destroy any human who dared touch it. Back on Earth, Sarah woke from uneasy sleep, her head pounding. She had dreamed of fire raining from the skies, alien fleets surrounding Earth, and humanity burning. When she told the captain, his jaw tightened. "Then we have no time left," he said. He ordered the crew to prepare the vessel for battle. But Sarah whispered in fear, "We cannot fight them with guns, Captain. We can only fight with what this ship has shown us." The crew gathered around the core, hands linked, hearts steady. The chamber glowed brighter than ever before as the alien fleet left their distant base, believing they were hunting prey. The humans were about to show them that prey had become predator. The weak ship was no longer weak, it was awakening, and with it, humanity was awakening too. The alien fleet cut through space like a storm, their ships glowing with cold fire. They had heard whispers of the human vessel, the one they had called junk, the one they had given away as an insult, but the whispers said something impossible. The weak ship had awakened, and humanity was using it. The Alien Council could not allow this, so they sent warships to Earth confident of easy victory. On Earth, Captain Harris stood in the control chamber of the vessel, his face grim. The crew was tense, their hands shaking, their eyes fixed on the glowing core. Sarah stood in front of the console, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. She could feel the ship alive beneath her, waiting, listening. "They are coming," she whispered, her voice filled with both fear and resolve. The captain nodded. Then this is the moment. Humanity has no choice but to fight. The alarms rang through the vessel as enemy signatures appeared on their sensors. Dozens of alien warships were descending, their weapons charged, their voices booming through the comms. "Return the vessel or Earth will burn," the alien commander demanded, his words like thunder, but the humans stayed silent. Sarah placed her hands on the console, closing her eyes. The ship pulsed with light, answering her touch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the stars outside began to twist. The alien ships suddenly found themselves drifting, their engines screaming in confusion. "Lock weapons," the alien commander shouted, but their weapons would not lock. Their targeting systems spun wildly as space bent around them. The weak ship was bending reality itself. Inside the human vessel, the crew gasped. They watched as enemy missiles dissolved into light before reaching them. Lasers bent away as if the air itself refused to let them strike. Sarah's face was pale, sweat dripping down her forehead. She whispered, "I am not controlling it. The ship is responding to me." The captain's eyes narrowed. "Then guide it, Sarah. Guide it with your will." She focused, imagining the alien fleet held still, trapped in a cage of stars. The core pulsed, brighter and brighter, and then it happened. Every alien ship froze, motionless, as if time itself had stopped. The human crew stared in disbelief. The mighty fleet of the Council was locked in space, helpless before the weakest ship. But the strain hit Sarah like fire. Her body shook violently, her voice breaking. "I cannot hold it for long." The captain placed his hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. "Then make them see. Show them what happens when they mock humanity." Sarah screamed as light poured from the core. Reality bent outward, and one of the alien warships shattered without a single shot fired. It broke apart, its pieces floating silently into the void. The other alien ships shook in terror, their comms filled with panicked voices. "What have the humans done?" they cried. "This is not possible." The alien commander snarled, fear creeping into his voice. "Retreat! Pull back now," he shouted. "Retreat! Pull back now," he shouted. But it was too late. The humans had already shown them a power no species had ever wielded. The weakest ship had become something unstoppable. When the battle ended, silence fell across space. The human crew sat frozen, their hearts pounding. Sarah collapsed to her knees, her hands trembling. The captain lifted her up gently, his voice calm but filled with pride. "You have done it. You showed them." She shook her head, whispering, "No, Captain, it was not me. It was the ship. It is alive, and it is choosing us." Back in the council chambers, the alien leaders stared at the reports with wide eyes. The data showed impossible readings, fleets torn apart without weapons, space itself rewritten. One council member slammed his fist against the table. "This cannot be allowed. If humans control this power, no one will be safe." Another voice whispered, trembling, "They were supposed to be weak. How did they become gods?" The galaxy began to whisper. Rumors spread of the day. The weakest ship destroyed an entire fleet. Some feared humanity, others were curious, and a few began to dream of rebellion against the Council. For the first time in history, humans were no longer mocked, they were feared. But inside the human vessel, Sarah sat in silence. Her eyes locked on the glowing core. She could still hear the whispers in her mind, strange voices from beyond the stars. She knew the battle was only the beginning. The ship had more secrets, deeper powers, and greater dangers. And as the core pulsed like a beating heart, she realized one chilling truth. They had not just rewritten reality, they had awakened something that might break it forever. The alien council sat in silence, their chamber no longer filled with laughter. The reports from the battlefield were undeniable. A fleet of their strongest ships had been torn apart, not by weapons, not by numbers, but by the weakest vessel they had given away as a joke. The counselors stared at each other, their faces pale, their pride shattered. One finally spoke, his voice heavy with fear. "If humans can do this with one ship, what happens if they build more?" Across the galaxy, whispers spread like fire. Merchants in space stations told stories of humans bending light. Soldiers spoke in hushed tones of fleets frozen in time. Entire worlds trembled as the tale grew. The weakest ship became a god ship, they said. And for the first time, the galaxy looked at humanity not with scorn, but with dread. But fear quickly turned to anger. The alien council could not allow their authority to break. They sent messengers across the stars, calling allies to join them. They told the galaxy that humans had stolen forbidden technology. They claimed Earth was a danger, that humanity would destroy reality itself. The lies spread fast, and many races believed them. Soon, fleets began to gather, a coalition rising against humanity. Back on Earth, the human crew worked in silence. Sarah sat in the core chamber, her hands resting on the console. The whispers from the ship grew louder every day. Sometimes she heard her own name spoken in voices that did not belong to humans. Sometimes she saw visions of stars collapsing, galaxies burning. She tried to hide her fear, but Captain Harris noticed the shadows under her eyes. "Sarah, you must rest," he said. But she shook her head, her voice trembling. "If I let go, Captain, the ship might slip away from us, and then we are nothing." The crew trained endlessly, learning to guide the ship with thought and will. They tested its powers in secret. They discovered the vessel could bend weapons into dust. It could move without moving, appearing in two places at once. It could even reach into the past for a heartbeat, replaying moments like echoes. Each test filled them with awe, but also with fear. The more they unlocked, the more unstable the ship became. Sarah whispered one night, "We are not mastering it. We are only scratching the surface." Far away, the alien coalition gathered. Hundreds of warships stood ready, larger than anything Earth had ever seen. The commanders spoke with fury. "Humanity must be crushed before they spread this plague," they declared. But deep down, some of them trembled. They remembered the first fleet that had vanished into silence. They feared they were marching to the same fate. On Earth, a warning arrived. A small alien envoy risked his life to bring a message. He bowed before Captain Harris and Sarah, his voice shaking. "They are coming. Not one fleet, not 10, but hundreds. They will destroy your world." The captain's eyes hardened. "Then we will show them. Earth does not bow." But Sarah lowered her head, whispering, "Captain, we cannot fight them all." Her voice broke as she added, "Unless the ship itself chooses to fight for us." The night before the invasion, Sarah entered the core chamber alone. The lights around her dimmed, and the whispers grew into a chorus. Her body trembled as she placed her hand on the glowing heart of the vessel. Visions filled her mind. Worlds breaking, stars collapsing, rivers of fire flowing through the void. And then she heard a voice, clear and strong. Not human, not alien. It said, "You are chosen, but choice carries a price." She gasped, pulling her hand away, but the words burned into her soul. When she told the captain, his face was grim. "What price?" he asked. Sarah shook her head, tears in her eyes. "I do not know yet, but the ship does not give without taking." The crew listened in silence, fear heavy in their hearts. They knew the war was coming, and the galaxy was ready to crush them. But they also knew they carried something no one else had, something that could break reality itself. Far across the stars, the alien coalition prepared to strike. Hundreds of fleets lit up the darkness, their weapons primed. Their leaders spoke with confidence. "Tomorrow, Earth burns," they declared, but deep in their hearts, they wondered if tomorrow would be the day the galaxy itself would break. And aboard the weakest ship, Sarah whispered into the silence, "We did not ask for this, but we will not run, we will not bow." The core pulsed with light, stronger than ever before. The crew felt it in their bones. The ship was waiting for the storm, waiting for the war, waiting to show the galaxy that humanity was not weak but unstoppable. The sky above Earth was no longer silent. Every telescope, every satellite showed the same terrifying sight. A storm of alien fleets filled the heavens, hundreds of warships surrounding the small blue world. The galaxy had united, not to explore, not to trade, but to crush humanity before it could rise. Inside the weak ship, the crew prepared for the impossible. Sarah stood at the core chamber, her hands trembling but steady. She could feel the hum of the vessel in her bones. It was alive, pulsing like a heart ready to burst. Captain Harris moved among the crew, his voice calm but sharp. "Remember, we are not fighting with guns. We are fighting with something they cannot understand." The first alien voice thundered across the comms. "Surrender the vessel. Surrender your planet. or be erased from the stars. The crew held their breath, the silence heavy. Then Sarah whispered, her voice strong, "No, we will not bow." The ship pulsed as if answering her defiance. The battle began with fire. Hundreds of beams of light streaked across space. Missiles flew, energy weapons roared. The sky lit up like the birth of a star, but none of it touched Earth. None of it touched the human vessel. The attacks bent away, space itself curving like a shield. The alien commander shouted in rage, "Tow!" Air fleets pushing harder, but the more they fired, the less the laws of reality obeyed them. Sarah closed her eyes, focusing. The ship listened, the core glowed, and suddenly the battlefield twisted. Alien warships found themselves colliding with each other. Their targeting systems showed illusions, phantom Earths, phantom fleets. The coalition was trapped in a nightmare they could not escape. "What is happening?" screamed one alien captain. "The humans are bending the void," another cried. Panic spread faster than fire, but the power came with a cost. Sarah's body shook, her voice cracked, blood dripped from her nose as she forced her mind to hold the chaos together. Captain Harris grabbed her shoulders. "Stop! You will kill yourself." She looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly with the core's light. Her whisper was cold. "If I stop, we all die." The ship pulsed brighter. The crew felt the deck vibrate. And then, reality shattered like glass. For a single heartbeat, the human vessel existed in 1,000 places at once. It appeared behind the alien fleet, above them, below them, inside them. Warships broke apart without a shot fired, ripped to pieces as space folded and tore. The weakest ship had become a storm no one could withstand. On Earth, billions watched the skies burn. Citizens cried out in awe and terror. They saw the impossible with their own eyes. Their world defended not by armies, not by weapons, but by one ship and one crew. The name humanity spread across the stars that night. Not as prey, not as weaklings, but as something greater. In the coalition fleets, chaos reigned. Some ships tried to flee, vanishing into hyperspace. Others begged for mercy, their comms filled with desperate cries. But the alien council screamed in fury, "Do not retreat. Do not bow to them." Yet even they felt fear in their hearts, for the humans were not just fighting, they were rewriting the universe. Inside the vessel, Sarah collapsed, her breath shallow. The captain caught her, shouting for medics. Her voice was faint but clear. "The ship, it wants more. It is not finished." The crew looked at the glowing core, brighter than a star. They realized with dread that the ship was not simply defending Earth. It was testing them, pushing them further. The whispers grew louder, filling every corner of the vessel. Voices that were not human, voices older than stars. The battle raged, fleets destroyed, the galaxy trembling. But in that moment, the crew knew the truth. They were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to decide if humanity would control the ship, or if the ship would control humanity. Far across the galaxy, neutral worlds listened to the screams of the coalition fleets. They saw the battle reports, impossible numbers, impossible losses, and they whispered the words that spread faster than war. "Do not challenge Earth. Do not challenge the humans, for they have the power to break reality." And deep in the silence of the vessel, Sarah opened her eyes, glowing with light not her own. Her whisper was soft, almost not her own. "This is only the beginning." The battlefield was silent at last. Alien wreckage floated like broken stars, shattered fleets drifting into the void. Earth was safe, the galaxy trembling. But inside the human vessel there was no celebration. The crew sat in silence, their eyes fixed on the glowing core. It pulsed brighter than ever before, as if it had fed on the war, as if it had grown stronger. Sarah lay weak on the floor, her skin pale, her breath shallow. Her eyes flickered with a faint light, not entirely human. Captain Harris knelt beside her, his voice low. "You held them back. You saved Earth." But Sarah shook her head, her voice trembling. "No, Captain. I was not saving us. The ship was using me." The words sent a chill through the crew. For days after the battle, the crew noticed strange things. Objects in the sus. A vessel shifted when no one touched them. Mirrors showed reflections that did not belong. At night, whispers echoed through the corridors. voices calling names of crew members long dead. One soldier shouted in fear, "This ship is haunted." But Sarah whispered the truth. It is not haunted, it is alive, and it remembers. The alien council, shaken but not broken, gathered again. Their spies sent urgent reports. Humans had bent the void, humans had shattered fleets. The council leader slammed his fist on the table, his voice desperate. If we do not stop them now, the humans will break the universe itself. But another voice, quieter, answered, "Perhaps the humans are not controlling it. Perhaps it is controlling them." The words spread unease even among the most powerful. Meanwhile, Sarah's visions grew worse. Every time she touched the core, her mind slipped into another place. She saw galaxies collapsing, time folding back on itself, shadows moving in the dark between stars. She screamed in the night, clutching her head. "The ship is showing me the end," she cried. The captain held her close, his voice firm. "Then we must master it before it masters us." But mastering the ship was no longer possible. It began to act on its own. When alien scouts tried to approach Earth secretly, the ship destroyed them without a command. When satellites drifted too near, they vanished, folded into nothing. The crew realized with horror that the vessel was choosing for itself. One whispered, "It is not our weapon anymore. We are its passengers." And yet the galaxy continued to march against them. New fleets gathered, desperate to end humanity before the infection of power spread. Some alien races even began to worship the ship from afar, calling it the breaker of reality. Others swore oaths to destroy it, even if it meant burning the stars. One night, as Sarah sat alone in the core chamber, the ship spoke to her, not in whispers but in a voice that shook her soul. It said, "You are chosen, but choice demands sacrifice." She gasped, tears streaming down her face. "What sacrifice?" she cried. The voice only answered with silence, but the core pulsed darker, as if alive with hunger. When she told the captain, his face turned grim. "What does it want?" he asked. Sarah's voice broke. "It wants more of me, of us. It wants to bind with humanity forever." The crew stared at her, horror on their faces. If the ship consumed them, humanity would no longer be human. They would become something else, something terrifying. The next morning, the stars themselves began to flicker. Scientists on Earth screamed as they saw the sky bend unnaturally, constellations shifting as if reality itself was twisting. The captain looked out the viewport, his heart sinking. "This is not just war anymore," he said, his voice heavy. "This is the breaking of the universe." And far beyond, in the cold halls of the alien council, fear had become despair. They whispered to each other not of defeating humans, but of surviving what was coming. For they realized the cruelest truth. In trying to humiliate humanity with weakness, they had given them the power to end all things, not just the galaxy, not just their fleets, but the very laws that held existence together. Inside the ship, Sarah opened her glowing eyes, her voice no longer entirely her own. She whispered a chilling promise. The universe will never be the same again. The galaxy trembled as silence fell after the great battle. Every world, every station, every council hall whispered the same question. What had humanity become, and what would they do next? The weakest ship, once given as an insult, now pulsed with a power that could bend stars and tear fleets apart. But inside the vessel, the crew knew they were standing on the edge of something far more dangerous than war. Sarah stood at the heart of the core chamber, her eyes glowing faintly, her body frail. The whispers of the ship no longer came as shadows, they spoke with clarity. "You are chosen, humanity is chosen, but the price remains." Captain Harris stood behind her, his jaw clenched. "What is the price?" he demanded, his voice strong. The ship's voice echoed. "To rewrite reality, humanity must give itself, not as rulers, not as slaves, but as one with the vessel." The crew froze, the truth striking them like thunder. The ship wanted to merge, to bind with humanity forever. If they agreed, humans would never be the same. They would rise beyond flesh, beyond time. But if they refused, the ship might turn against them, and the galaxy would crush Earth without mercy. On Earth, billions watched the skies flicker with unnatural light, the stars bent and twisted, the constellations shifting like living fire. People cried, prayed, and shouted into the night. They had seen their species go from mocked to feared in a single heartbeat, and now they feared what they might become. In the council chambers, panic ruled. Some leaders screamed for immediate attack, others begged for surrender, but none could deny the truth. Humanity held a power that no one else in history had ever touched, and whether they used it or not, the galaxy would never be the same. Sarah collapsed to her knees, her voice shaking. "I cannot hold it back much longer. The ship will decide without us." The captain knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. "No, Sarah, listen to me. We decide, not the ship. Humanity decides." His voice thundered across the chamber, rallying the crew. "We were given weakness, but we turned it into strength. We will not bow to the ship, and we will not bow to the council. We will choose our own fate." The core pulsed violently, the lights blinding. Reality rippled around them, showing glimpses of possible futures. In one, humanity rose as gods, rewriting the stars, but losing themselves. In another, humanity refused, and the galaxy destroyed Earth. In fire, the choice was cruel, but it was theirs. Sarah lifted her head, her voice filled with steel. "Then we choose neither. We will not be gods. We will not be prey. We will be human." The ship shuddered, the core screaming with light. For a moment, it seemed as if the vessel would tear itself apart, but then, slowly, the pulse softened. The whispers faded and the ship grew still. It had listened. It had accepted. The alien fleets gathered on the edge of Earth's system, watched in silence. They had expected fire, destruction, or surrender, but instead they saw the human vessel glowing with calm power, a warning, not an attack, a voice broadcast across the galaxy. Sarah's voice, steady and clear. "We are humanity. We will not be erased. We will not be ruled. We will not be gods. We will be ourselves, and that is enough to shake your stars." The galaxy trembled at the words. Some bowed in fear, others clenched their fists in anger, but all understood the truth. Humanity was no longer weak, no longer prey. They had rewritten reality, not by becoming something else, but by refusing to stop being human. On Earth, celebrations erupted, families wept, children shouted, leaders stared at the sky in awe. They knew their world was forever changed. The weakest gift had become the strongest shield. The insult had become the beginning of legend. In the silence of the core chamber, Sarah touched the console gently. The ship hummed like a sleeping giant. Her whisper was soft, filled with hope and fear. "This is not the end. It is the beginning." The captain placed his hand beside hers, his voice firm. "Then let the galaxy remember. They tried to break us, and instead, we rose." And so the story of the weakest ship ended not with destruction, not with surrender, but with the birth of something greater, the birth of humanity's place among the stars, not as gods, not as but as the unbroken will that even reality could not deny.